The spring wind carried the scent of blooming sakura across the courtyard of Kawahara University. Students laughed, petals danced in the air, and the new semester had just begun. For Hayato Sakamura, everything was supposed to be calm this year, his second year as the top student in the literature department. He was used to quiet mornings, a cup of black coffee, and his favorite seat by the window in the library. Until that day. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" Hayato looked up from his notebook. A tall boy stood before him, with tousled brown hair and an easy smile. His uniform was neat, but his tie hung loose, and there was a spark of confidence in his amber eyes. "It is now," Hayato muttered, turning back to his book. "Oh, that's fine by me," the stranger said, sitting down anyway. "I'm Ren Kurose, transfer student, literature major." The name struck something inside Hayato. He'd heard it whispered that morning, "There's a new student who ranked top in his previous university. They say he's a genius." Hayato sighed quietly. So this was his so-called rival. Ren leaned closer. "You're Hayato Sakamura, right? Top of your class." Hayato's pencil paused mid-word. "If you already know, then why ask?" Ren grinned, unfazed. "Because I like knowing what my competition looks like." Hayato met his gaze, calm but sharp. "Then you'd better study hard." Ren chuckled, leaning back. "Guess we'll see who's better soon enough." That was the beginning, the spark that started everything. The literature department's annual essay contest was approaching, and both Hayato and Ren signed up. It became an unspoken war. Who would win, who would shine brighter? In class, they always ended up debating. When Hayato argued that art should reflect truth, Ren countered, art should move the heart, not the mind. Their classmates would glance between them like it was a tennis match, half amused, half in awe. After one such debate, their professor, an old man with sharp glasses, chuckled. "You two remind me of fire and water, opposites, but inseparable in the way you balance each other." Hayato flushed slightly, muttering, "I don't think we're that close." Ren just smirked. Yet, one rainy evening, the power went out on campus. The storm had hit hard, thunder rumbling like a heartbeat. Hayato had stayed late in the library, lost in his writing. His essay deadline was the next morning. As he reached for his coffee, a shadow appeared beside him. "Still working?" Hayato jumped. "Kurose-kun, what are you doing here?" "Same as you, finishing my essay. But the lights went out in the west wing, so I came here." Ren sat across from him, dripping from the rain, hair wet, shirt clinging slightly to his collarbone. Hayato tried not to notice. "You could have brought an umbrella," Hayato said dryly. "I did. The wind broke it." Ren smiled faintly, then sighed. "You always look so serious, Sakamura. Don't you ever relax?" Hayato hesitated. "Relaxing doesn't win contests." "Maybe not, but it might make life more bearable." The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable, just heavy with something unspoken. Ren glanced at Hayato's laptop screen. "You're writing about loneliness in modern poetry." "Fitting." Hayato raised an eyebrow. "What's that supposed to mean?" Ren shrugged. "You always seem like someone carrying too much silence." For the first time, Hayato couldn't think of a comeback. Ren's tone wasn't mocking, it was gentle, almost sad. Before he could reply, lightning flashed outside. Hayato flinched slightly. "Hey," Ren said softly, "you okay?" "Just don't like thunder." Ren reached across the table and, without thinking, placed his hand over Hayato's. Warm, firm, reassuring. "It'll pass," Ren whispered. "Storms always do." For a long moment, neither moved. Only the sound of rain filled the air. When the lights finally flickered back on, Ren withdrew his hand, smiling faintly. "Guess we'll call it a draw tonight, huh?" Hayato looked down, heart thudding in a way he couldn't explain. Yeah, a draw, but deep down, he wasn't so sure anymore who was winning this strange rivalry. The sakura petals had long fallen, replaced by the bright greens of early summer. The campus buzzed with excitement. The Kawahara University Cultural Festival was coming. Booths, performances, and exhibits filled the air with energy. Every department was preparing something, and the literature department had chosen to perform a dramatic reading of original short stories, written and presented by students. Naturally, both Hayato and Ren had been chosen as leads. "I still don't understand why they paired us," Hayato muttered, flipping through his script. Ren leaned against the desk beside him, grinning. "Because we're the best, obviously. Or the noisiest," Hayato sighed. Their classmates laughed, used to their dynamic. They had gone from silent competition to constant banter, a rhythm everyone found oddly endearing. But when Ren spoke to him, when their eyes met, Hayato felt something stir in his chest. He'd started noticing little things. The way Ren brushed his hair from his face when he was thinking, the curve of his smile, how easily he talked to people. And how much Hayato wanted that warmth turned toward him alone. Rehearsal nights became routine. They stayed late in the empty classroom, reading lines under the flickering fluorescent lights. Their story, ironically, was about two rivals who discover love through words. Ren teased him constantly. "You're blushing too soon, Sakamura." "I'm not." "Then why can I see it even under this awful lighting?" Hayato glared, cheeks pink. "Focus on your lines." Ren laughed softly. "Fine, fine." But as the night wore on, something about the atmosphere shifted. The playful tension deepened. When Hayato stumbled over a particularly emotional line, "I hate you because you make my heart weak," he froze. Ren looked at him, quiet for once. "You said that too well." Hayato avoided his eyes. "It's just acting." "Maybe," Ren murmured, stepping closer. But it sounded real. Hayato's breath caught. Ren was close, close enough that he could feel his warmth, smell faint traces of rain and coffee. Then, thankfully or tragically, the door creaked open, their class representative poking her head in. "Oh, you two are still here. Don't forget to lock up." They jumped apart like startled cats. After she left, Hayato busied himself with packing up his notes. "We should go." Ren smiled quietly, watching him. "Yeah, before I say something I shouldn't." Hayato froze for half a second, then pretended not to hear. By the time the festival arrived, the air was electric with anticipation. Food stalls lined the campus, students in yukatas laughed and waved. When it was finally time for their performance, the auditorium filled quickly. Hayato took a deep breath backstage. His heart pounded, not from nerves, but because Ren was standing next to him, fixing his collar with gentle hands. "You'll do great," Ren said softly. "You always do." Hayato stared at him, words failing. "You too." When they stepped onto the stage, under the warm spotlight, something magical happened. Their lines, about rivalry, longing, and eventual understanding, no longer felt like fiction. Each word, each glance between them, carried truth. The audience disappeared. It was just them. When Hayato reached the last line, "Even if we started as rivals, my heart found its home in you," his voice trembled slightly. And when Ren answered with his line, "Then stay, under the same sky with me," his tone was soft, sincere, almost trembling too. The crowd applauded loudly, but as they bowed, Hayato could barely hear anything over the rush in his chest. When they stepped backstage, Ren turned to him, eyes shining. "You felt it too, didn't you?" Hayato swallowed. "Felt what?" "That, whatever that was out there." Hayato looked away. "We were just acting." Ren smiled faintly. "Sure, if that's what helps you sleep tonight." That night, Hayato couldn't sleep. He sat by his dorm window, watching fireworks burst over the distant campus. Ren's words echoed in his mind. "You felt it too, didn't you?" He closed his eyes, trying to deny it, but his heart betrayed him. He had felt it. Every word, every glance, every breath they shared on that stage had been real. Just then, his phone buzzed. A message. "Ren Kurose, are you awake?" Hayato hesitated, then typed back. "Hayato, unfortunately." "Ren, come to the roof. I have something to show you." Curiosity won over logic. Within minutes, Hayato was on the dorm rooftop, cool summer breeze brushing his hair. Ren was already there, leaning against the railing, 2 cans of soda in hand. "You actually came," Ren said with a grin, tossing one to him. "You said you had something to show me." Ren gestured toward the horizon. "Fireworks. They're still going off at the river festival nearby." They stood in silence, watching colors bloom in the night sky. "You know," Ren said after a while, "when I first transferred here, I thought you were cold. Untouchable." Hayato sipped his drink quietly. "You weren't wrong. But you're not. You just build walls around yourself." Hayato turned to him, frowning slightly. "And what would you know about my walls?" "Because I've been trying to climb them since the day we met." Their eyes met, and for once, Hayato didn't look away. Ren took a slow step forward. "You don't have to answer. Just, don't pretend you don't feel it too." Before Hayato could respond, another firework exploded above, a brilliant burst of red and gold. The light reflected in Ren's eyes, soft and hopeful. And in that moment, Hayato realized something terrifying and beautiful. He didn't want to fight Ren anymore. He wanted to understand him. Summer at Kawahara University was humid, noisy, and alive. The cicadas sang endlessly, students crowded cafes with iced coffees and lazy laughter, and exams loomed on the horizon like dark clouds. But for Hayato Sakamura, the real storm was already brewing, inside him. It had been 2 weeks since that night on the rooftop. 2 weeks since Ren had said those words that refused to leave his mind. Don't pretend you don't feel it too. Since then, Hayato had been off balance. He'd find his eyes drifting toward Ren in lectures, catching the way he twirled his pen when thinking, the little half-smile he gave when answering a question right. And every time their eyes met, Ren's smile grew softer, like he was waiting for something. Hayato didn't know what to do with that. The essay contest results were only a week away, and the campus library had become their second home. Hayato sat across from Ren as usual, papers scattered between them, a quiet tension humming in the air. You're distracted, Ren said, tapping his pencil. I'm not, Hayato replied automatically. Ren leaned closer, eyebrow raised. You've been reading the same paragraph for 10 minutes. Hayato scowled. Maybe it's a very deep paragraph. Ren chuckled softly. Or maybe you're thinking about me again. Hayato nearly choked on his coffee. What? Ren's grin widened. So I'm right. You're insufferable, Hayato muttered, hiding behind his notes. And yet, Ren said lightly, you keep sitting across from me every day. Hayato didn't answer, because that was true, and he didn't have a reason he could admit aloud. A few evenings later, tension finally snapped. They were leaving the library when rain started, sudden, heavy, relentless. The sound filled the air, the scent of wet earth surrounding them. They ran under the same umbrella, shoulders brushing, shoes splashing in puddles. It would have been peaceful, romantic, even, if not for the question Ren suddenly asked. Hayato, are you avoiding me? Hayato stiffened. No, why would I? You've barely looked at me since the rooftop. We have exams, Hayato said quickly. I'm focused. Ren stopped walking. You're lying. The rain pattered around them, but Hayato couldn't look up. If you don't feel anything, fine, Ren said, voice softer now. But at least say it. Don't keep me guessing. Hayato's fingers tightened around the umbrella handle. Why do you care so much? Ren's eyes flashed with hurt. Because I like you, idiot. The words hung in the air, raw, trembling, louder than the thunder that cracked a moment later. Hayato froze. The umbrella tilted slightly, rain hitting his sleeve, but he barely noticed. You, his voice was barely a whisper. You like me. Ren laughed once, bitterly. I tried not to. You're impossible. You argue with everything. You act like emotions are a weakness, but then you smile at something small, and it ruins me. He took a shaky breath. I like you. I've liked you for months. Hayato's heart pounded so hard it hurt. The rain soaked through their shoes, their hair, the space between them shrinking with every word. Say something, Ren whispered. Anything. But Hayato couldn't. He wanted to reach out, say me too, admit that he'd been falling without realizing it. But fear held his tongue. Ren gave a small, sad smile. Yeah, that's what I thought. He handed Hayato the umbrella and stepped back into the rain. Don't catch a cold, he said quietly, before walking away. Hayato stood there, drenched and trembling, watching him disappear through the blur of rain. The umbrella hung useless in his hand. He'd spent so long competing, protecting his pride, building walls, that he didn't realize until now how lonely it had made him. And how much Ren's warmth had started to fill that emptiness. They didn't speak for days. The silence was unbearable. Hayato threw himself into his studies, his writing, anything to distract his mind. But nothing helped. Every page he read, every corridor he walked, he expected to see Ren. When the essay contest results came out, he barely cared. He'd won, but it felt meaningless. After the ceremony, he stood alone in the courtyard, certificate in hand, staring at the cloudy sky. That's when he heard a familiar voice behind him. Congrats, top student. Hayato turned, and there was Ren, hands in pockets, smile small but genuine. You came, Hayato said softly. Wouldn't miss your victory speech. Even if you ignored me all week. Hayato looked away. I wasn't ignoring you. You weren't exactly talking to me either. A pause. The air between them was thick with everything unsaid. Finally, Hayato spoke. That night, when you said you liked me, I didn't know what to say. Not because I didn't care, but because I did. Ren's eyes widened slightly. I'm not good at feelings, Hayato continued, voice low. I thought caring about someone would make me weaker. But it didn't. It just made me realize I don't want to be alone anymore. He took a step closer. So if it's not too late, I'd like to start over. As more than rivals. For a heartbeat, Ren just stared, and then he laughed, soft and shaky. You really took your time, didn't you? Hayato smiled faintly. You said I was slow to relax. Ren stepped forward until their foreheads almost touched, rain still faintly falling around them. You're impossible, he whispered. You like impossible things, Hayato replied. Ren grinned. You have no idea. And before Hayato could say another word, Ren kissed him, gentle, uncertain, but full of everything they'd been holding back for months. The rain fell softly around them, washing away the distance that once stood between their hearts. After that rain-soaked confession, life didn't suddenly become perfect, but for the first time, Hayato felt like the world had color again. Ren and he didn't announce anything, they didn't need to. Their classmates just knew. The small glances, quiet smiles, and how Hayato, the famously stoic top student, would now allow someone to steal bites of his lunch without protest. They'd gone from rivals to something warmer, quieter, and infinitely more complicated. Ren had a habit of showing up at Hayato's dorm room unannounced. Sometimes with breakfast, sometimes with absolutely nothing but mischief. Morning, Ren greeted, flopping onto Hayato's bed one Saturday. You're still in pajamas. Scandalous. Hayato sighed. It's 7 a.m. on a weekend. Perfect time for a walk by the river. Or maybe a date. Hayato arched an eyebrow. You call ambushing me at dawn a date? Ren smirked. I call it love. Hayato's ears turned faintly pink, and Ren grinned triumphantly. These were the mornings Hayato had never realized he wanted. Soft teasing, quiet laughter, someone to share his otherwise still world with. When midterms came, they often studied together at their favorite cafe near campus, a cozy place that smelled of cinnamon and coffee beans. Ren was distractingly talkative, and Hayato had to threaten to confiscate his notebook just to make him focus. You're scary when you're serious, Ren said once, pouting. That's the only way you study. You sound like my mom. Do I? Hayato asked coolly. Should I start giving you allowance too? Ren burst out laughing so loudly that the barista glanced over. Hayato looked mortified, but there was a smile tugging at his lips. Between notes and laughter, small touches became natural, fingers brushing when passing pens, Ren leaning his head on Hayato's shoulder when tired, Hayato pretending to be annoyed but never moving away. Of course, it wasn't always peaceful. One afternoon, Ren was chatting animatedly with a girl from another class. Hayato happened to walk by, and for the first time in his life, he felt something unfamiliar twist in his chest. That evening, Ren knocked on his door. You're quiet, he said. Did something happen? Hayato didn't answer. Ren tilted his head. Wait, are you jealous? Don't be ridiculous, Hayato said too quickly. Ren smiled. You are. That's actually kind of cute. Hayato turned away, muttering, you talk to everyone like that. Ren laughed, stepping closer. But I only look at you like this. He tilted Hayato's chin up gently. Their eyes met, steady, sure. And just like that, the jealousy melted into something softer. Hayato sighed. You're impossible. You like impossible things, Ren whispered, repeating Hayato's own words from that night in the rain. Hayato's heart gave up pretending. He kissed him, quick, quiet, but full of meaning. By the time autumn arrived, the world had turned gold. The campus paths were lined with fallen leaves, and the air smelled faintly of roasted chestnuts. Their relationship had settled into something steady. They still bickered, especially over literature theories, but now their fights often ended with laughter or stolen kisses instead of silence. They spent weekends exploring little bookstores, sharing novels, or just lying under the trees talking about dreams. Ren wanted to write stories that made people cry and smile all at once. Hayato wanted to teach, to share his love for words with others. One afternoon, as they sat beneath a ginkgo tree, Ren asked quietly, do you ever think about what happens after graduation? Hayato nodded. Sometimes. Scary, huh? Hayato looked at him, the sunlight catching in his hair, his eyes filled with warmth. Not really, not if you're there. Ren blinked, then smiled, the kind of smile that melted the world. I'll be there, he said simply. That winter, snow fell for the first time. The campus turned quiet and white. Hayato and Ren sat by the dorm window, wrapped in blankets, a single lamp casting golden light. Ren rested his head on Hayato's shoulder. You know, he murmured, when I first met you, I wanted to beat you. Hayato chuckled. You still can't. Ren laughed softly. True, but then I realized, I didn't want to win against you. I just wanted to be with you. Hayato's chest tightened. He reached over, brushing Ren's hair from his forehead. You've always been reckless with your words. Maybe, but they're always true. Hayato hesitated, then whispered, I love you. The words surprised even him, quiet, honest, trembling. Ren looked up, eyes wide. Then his face broke into the gentlest smile. Say it again. I love you, Hayato repeated, more certain this time. Ren leaned up and kissed him, slow and deep, snow falling silently beyond the glass. Spring returned, gentle and bright, like the very first day they met. Cherry blossoms swayed in the wind again, covering Kawahara University in pink and white. But this time, everything was different. They weren't rivals anymore. They weren't two people walking separate paths. They were Hayato Sakamura and Ren Kurose, side by side. The courtyard was filled with laughter, photographs, and the scent of new beginnings. Students tossed their caps into the air, shouting goodbyes and promises to keep in touch. Hayato stood near the old library, adjusting his gown. His silver pin, the one given to the department's top student, gleamed in the sunlight. Behind him, a familiar voice called, Hey, Sakamura-senpai, looking all grown up. He turned. Ren stood there in his gown, hair a little longer now, smile just as bright. In his hands was a single bouquet of white lilies. You didn't have to get me flowers, Hayato said, though his voice softened. They're for both of us, Ren replied. You won the top student award, and I, somehow managed to graduate without getting expelled for teasing you too much. Hayato laughed, a real, unguarded laugh. That's a miracle worth celebrating. They walked together to the small hill behind campus, the same spot where they'd once rehearsed lines for the cultural festival. The city spread out below, roofs glittering in the distance, petals dancing in the air. Feels like yesterday, doesn't it? Ren said quietly. Our first day here. You glaring at me like I was a crime scene. You sat in my seat. Worth it. They fell into silence. Not the old, tense kind, but the comfortable quiet that comes from knowing the other person's heart completely. So, Ren said after a while, what happens now, Professor Sakamura? Hayato smiled faintly. I'll stay in Tokyo. Start my master's degree next month. Figures. You'd marry your books if you could. And you? Ren's smile softened. I got an internship at that publishing house in Osaka. It's a start. Hayato's expression faltered. Not out of disappointment, but from the ache of distance already forming. Osaka, he repeated. That's far. Ren nodded. Yeah, but the trains still run both ways. Hayato looked at him for a long moment, then reached out, intertwining their fingers. I hate goodbyes. Then don't say one, Ren murmured. Say, see you soon. Hayato hesitated, then smiled. See you soon, Kurose. Ren squeezed his hand gently. See you soon, Sakamura. They stood like that for a while, under a sky the color of soft blue silk, clouds drifting lazily by. Ren tilted his head back. Remember that essay you wrote? Loneliness in Modern Poetry. Hayato nodded. Of course, you said loneliness was inevitable. I was wrong. Ren turned to him, surprised. Hayato looked up at the clouds. Loneliness isn't inevitable. We just convince ourselves it is because we're afraid to reach out. Ren smiled. Sounds like something a teacher would say. Maybe, but I learned it from you. Tokyo Station buzzed with noise, luggage wheels rolling, voices echoing through announcements. Hayato stood on platform 14, his heart pounding as the express from Osaka pulled in. The doors slid open, and among the crowd stepped Ren, wearing a dark coat and the same confident grin. Did you wait long? Ren asked, slinging his bag over his shoulder. 5 minutes, Hayato lied. He'd been there for 30. Ren laughed, stepping forward to hug him tightly, the kind of hug that says I'm home. How was Osaka? Hayato asked as they walked out together. Good. Busy. But I sold my first short story. Hayato's eyes widened. Ren, that's amazing. Greater than, it's just a start, Ren said, glancing sideways at him. But every story I write, somehow ends up being about us. Hayato smiled softly. Then I should start grading your work. Please don't, Ren groaned. They both laughed, the same blend of teasing and tenderness that had started everything. That night, they sat on Hayato's apartment balcony. The city lights shimmered below, the same moon hanging above them that once watched over their rain-soaked confession. Ren leaned against Hayato's shoulder, whispering, "You ever think about how weird it is? We met because we wanted to outdo each other. And ended up outdoing loneliness instead," Hayato replied. Ren chuckled. "You're getting poetic again. Blame literature." They sat in silence for a while, just listening to the faint hum of the city and the steady rhythm of each other's breathing. Then Hayato spoke, voice low. "You once said storms always pass. Yeah, you were right. But some people stay even after the rain stops." Ren looked up, eyes glistening. "I'll stay, always." Hayato smiled, the same quiet, beautiful smile that Ren had fallen in love with years ago. Years later, at a small bookstore in Shinjuku, a newly released novel sat in the display window. Its title, Under the Same Sky. Author, Ren Kurose. Dedication, for HS, who taught me that rivalry can turn into love, and that the sky we share will never end. Inside the store, Ren was doing a signing event, greeting readers with his familiar warmth. Near the back, a quiet man in glasses watched proudly, holding a coffee in one hand. When the crowd thinned, Ren looked up and found him. Their eyes met, the same way they had that very first day in the library. Ren smiled. Hayato smiled back. No words needed, just two hearts, steady and sure. Outside, the evening sky stretched endlessly above them, soft clouds, golden light, and the promise that wherever they went, they'd always stand under the same sky.